All right, this is the Story Series podcast where we tell the stories behind the people. Farnaz Esnaashari, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
You are the award-winning creator of Nickelodeon's Shimmer Shine, which ran for 4 seasons, became this global success. You're also a children's book author, and most recently the founder of the Pitch Docs, which is a service that connects first-time show creators with seasoned veterans. I'm excited to get into all that with you. And once again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for reaching out and for having me on this. This is amazing.
I like to go back and start with origin stories.
Yeah.
So if you could, where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Irvine, California, born in San Diego, raised in Irvine. Do you want me to go from there? Or do you want to?
Yeah.
Want me to just ramble?
No. Yeah. So you grew up in Irvine.
Yes, I grew up in Irvine. At a young age, like I was always loving to draw, to paint, to create. I was always making things. And, I didn't really know what I wanted to do in life, right? And everybody else was taking SATs and doing all of their classes and trying to figure out, they all knew specifically what they wanted. I had no clue. I just knew I liked to draw. That was the only thing that made me happy. And one day I started taking classes, ROP classes in high school, and I fell in love with it. And so then I went to a junior college first, and I took a bunch of the art courses there. And for the first time ever, school finally made sense. School felt good. Up until that point, school was not easy. Like, I made it through, but all of a sudden I loved it. And I never thought I would love it until art classes.
Yeah. And when you were growing up through elementary, junior high, were you the kid that struggled to pay attention because you were always drawing? Or what were your interests back then? What kind of drew you?
It wasn't that I was always drawing. Actually, I wasn't that kid. I was the kid who didn't understand what they were saying. I was like, what are they saying? Like, even still to this day, if you want me to understand, I need to see it. I can't hear it.
So always visual.
Always visual. So, the classes where I could visualize it, I did well. But the classes where it was just lecture, I had no idea what anyone was saying. I was like, what language is that? Is that English? And I'm still like that. Like, last night we went to dinner. The lady helping us told us her name. She walked away. I looked at my friend. I said, what did she say? She's like, I don't know. It's like, dang
I know.
it.
I never retain names. When I meet someone, it always goes away instantly.
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
I never...
I have to draw it out in the air, see the letters, and associate it and go, okay, got it. I've got it. Just kidding. I don't have it anymore.
Yeah. So, and then when you kind of discovered that art really, that you took to it, what kind of art? Like, what was it that you saw that kind of made you want to do it yourself?
So this is going to sound really weird, but I was like, I want to say 2 years old. And I had this, and you're not supposed to remember things this young, but that's the way my brain works. And I had this Crayola table, and it had little Crayola chairs, and it opened up, and you could put all your crafts in it. And I had Play-Doh, everything inside of there. And my Barbies were in the chair. And my best friend, Layla, was sick. She was in the hospital getting her tonsils out. And so I sat at that table, and I, out of construction paper, 3D made tulips for her with pistons in it and sprayed it with my mom's perfume, right? So if I think back to that young, I was always doing it. And I remember one day, the iconic, I think you've got it right there, the iconic Mickey Mouse logo with the 3 circles, right?
Yes.
I tried to draw that at like 2 or 3 years old. And I remember it looked like garbage to me because it didn't look like the drawing. I'm sure it was really good for a 2 or 3 year old now as an adult, right? But at that age, I was like, this is not good. I'm never drawing again. And I didn't. For years, I did not touch Mickey Mouse again until I was in junior high. This is the weird kind of brain I
already
have.
A harsh critic on yourself.
Still, right now, I'm sure I'm going to hate everything about what I look like in this video. But it is what it is. Embrace it. But so at very young, I started doing that. And I still to this day remember, like, even in elementary school, we would have, we only got an art teacher, I think once a month. It was like our special thing we got. And I wanted so badly to impress her, but she never picked mine. She always picked Lisa's. Lisa. but but I was like, well, I must suck at this, right? Like you, as artists, you're like your own worst critic, you know? And it wasn't until junior high, my mom is a nurse, and she was working at this retirement facility in Orange County, and it was around Christmas time. And this doctor gave her one of these, you know, they're like this big, 365 days of Disney. And it was just every single day was a different like clip from one of their animated features. She's like, do you want this? I was like, okay. And I had from, I think it was like TJ Maxx or Marshalls. I still remember it was $12.99. I remember the sticker because it's visual. And it was one of those little booklets that you open with the colored pencils. They're like the cheapest, crappiest colored pencils, but they were like so amazing to me, right? And with like the drawing pages in it. And I was like, sitting in a back of a car. I can't even look at my cell phone now. I guess at that age it was fine. Like I get car sick now if I look at it, but I sat in the back of the car. We were driving to some family friend's house in San Diego, and all of a sudden one day I just started drawing the pages. And then I was like, wait, it kind of looks like it. Let me try again, right? Because I still had that thing from when I was 2-3 years old in my brain. I was like, wait, it kind of looks like it again. Let's do it again. So I started going through that book, and I got more paper, I got more pencils, I went through almost the whole 365 days and drew it, right? And we're talking, the images were 2 inches by 2 inches. And I'm drawing them 11 by 17.
Do you have any idea what you might be doing post high school? Any
Not a
sort of
clue.
like any career interest at that point?
Not a clue. And like, I remember everyone was taking the SATs, and they're like, are you going to take them? I was like, no. They're like, why not? I was like, that's dumb. I don't need that. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I gotta go to JC. What do I need that shit for?
How funny. I was the same way. I went to community college and I did not take the SAT.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm going to go to.
Yeah.
You know.
And they're like, well, don't you want to know what you're going to get? I was like, no, because I already know I'm smart enough to know I don't need it.
I love that. I was more like afraid to find out what the score. I like your confidence.
I just didn't care. Like, I was like, why would I literally said, why would I put myself under that stress and pressure for no reason?
And even though you didn't really know what you wanted to do, you seemed pretty confident knowing what you didn't want. So why, which is also important.
I think that's me in general.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's like, do you want to try this food? No. Like, why not? I'm like, because I don't want it.
So, and why did you think that you were going to go to community college? Like, was there?
I don't know.
You don't know.
That's where I was going to go.
Close to home? And
Yeah.
you just thought, okay, I'll probably
I'll go there first.
Is that because maybe you didn't quite know what you wanted to do?
Maybe. But even how I got into animation school was like that. Like, the best way I can explain myself is I'm the most spontaneous planner you're ever going to meet. It's a walking contradiction, right? Like, I'll have a goal, but how I'm going to get there, I have no idea. You know, just whichever way the current blows me is the way I'm going to get there. Like, I'll have 25 plans and ideas of how it's going to happen, but the reality is you're not in control. You don't get to, the more you try and force something a certain way, the less it's going to work. So you just kind of go with it and see what happens and see how you get there. And then the momentum starts building a certain way, and then you're running that direction, you know? So it was kind of like that with school too. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I liked to draw, so I wanted to take more of those classes, and the JC had more of those classes. So I could take, I guess that's the answer. I could take the other classes that I had to take, but I could go take some of these art classes too and see if I liked it.
Mm-hmm. And you did.
Yeah.
And you stayed with it in junior college.
Yes. And so I remember it was the first day of junior college, and there were all these guys standing there, and they're like, I was like, oh, I'm going to be done in 2 years. And they're like, no, you're not. I was like, why not? And they're like, well, we've been here 5, we've been here 6. I was like, well, that sucks for you. I'm going to be done in 2. See you later. I didn't even take summer school, none of that. I was like, because I was like, just keep taking as many classes as you took in high school, have a full day every day and get it done.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I was one of those guys that was there for 5 years.
yeah.
But then the 2 years, then I got it together right after that. But why were you so confident? And completing it in 2 years, where did you think you were going to go?
Didn't know. Didn't matter. I just had to be done because that was the goal.
That was the goal.
That was the goal. Because
point?
someone told me I couldn't. Right? If I hadn't met those guys on day one and they hadn't have said that to me, maybe it would have taken me 3-4 years. But because they said that, I was like, no, I'm going to be done. Well, just because you said I'm not, I'm going to be done.
It's like that I'll show you kind of attitude.
Yes.
It seems like you've always kind of had that.
Yes. I mean, the older I get, the less I have it. I'm getting tired, Like, fine, whatever. I don't care.
I understand.
Yeah. But when I was younger, I really had it. Like,
Where do you think
back.
that came from?
I am starting to understand more and more about that now. I'm going to guess it's neurodivergence, which is why I also have auditory processing, but I don't know. That would be my guess because there's that defiance of you don't tell me what I'm capable of. I decide what I'm capable of.
Yes.
So,
and if you don't mind, what does auditory processing mean? Auditory
processing is where you have a hard time understanding what learning. Like in the classroom, when it was lecture, I'd fall asleep. Every damn time, no matter how hard I tried.
And that's an emphasis because it's a lack of visual and it's all audio. It's just a lecture.
So it just becomes like hearing a fan, right? But I didn't know about any of this till recently, till I started. This is all new information for you, world. Hi. But I think a lot of us creatives are wired different. We do learn and process different, right? That's what makes your brain good at the creative. Is being able to, it's not a thing that everyone can do to build a world out of their imagination. It's not. That's a very specific brain that can do that. But it's also a very specific brain who can sit there and crunch numbers and understand them. I can't do that.
Right.
I can figure out how much the discount is and pay my bills. I can't. They're like, how about this? How about this? I'm like, you guys are talking gibberish to me, I will just pay a CPA because this is not for me.
Right, yes. Yeah. And so Fullerton for you was where you graduated from ultimately in the animation program.
Yep. I was taking the animation class and it was like hardcore. Our teacher was like, so the first day of class, it was standing room only. There was more people in the classroom. It was double the amount. He goes, it was like Survivor, right? And he was just like, okay, look around the room right now. Half of you won't be in here by the time lunch break comes. I was like, what? Are we going to kill each other? Like, what's happening? He's like, you need to get the following. You need to go get the Book of Life, the Illusion of Life. You need to go get a light box. And he listed off all of these things. And if you don't come back with it by this time, don't come back at all. We don't even know what these things are. Do you know what a light box is? It's like your first day.
Yeah.
How many stores have them? Where are they? We're calling. And so you had to pair up in teams, but beat the other team. So like a group of us were like a team of 3. We're like, well, don't tell them where we're going. Okay, but now you can tell them that. Now that we have them, you can tell them.
Right, because they're going to get all scooped up.
Yeah. So it was the craziest thing ever. And we came back and half the room was gone. And now there was seats for everyone available. I was like, what the? I think
it's a good way to thin out the crowd.
I think he actually got in trouble. but and so I remember a group of folks, one was my ex-husband, and he was the first person I spoke to, and he was sitting there flipping. And I was like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm flipping. And he explains the whole thing to me. And I was like, well, what is this class? What is this? He's like, this is the special studies class. And so I said to the teacher, I was like, well, I want to be in that class. I want to learn to do that. And he said, that's my special studies course. And you're not going to get in it. It's like day one. Why am I not going to get in it?
Wow.
And I was like, why? He said, because you have to get an A in this class to make it to special studies. So guess who got an A? Me, right? Against all odds, because the only person that he loved was this one girl who woman now, but I don't want to say the name because she does work in our industry, because we all ended up going to school. Like from school, we all ended up working together.
Right.
And he was only like about her. So I like worked so hard to get it. And then I got it. And then I was the only person in the special studies class. I was like, this sucked. Like, it was just me. I was like, this sucks. Where's everyone?
Wow.
Yeah.
No one else
Nobody else
made it?
wanted to do it because he was hardcore. I
seems
mean,
like
like, I quit my job. Well, I tried to quit. They wouldn't let me quit. They're like, no, just at least go to once a month. Keep your benefits, and as soon as you can do more, you can. I slept in the classroom. I put 2 chairs together in a sleeping bag and slept in a closet because the janitor was crazy and thought there were ants everywhere and would bang around and go, the ants. I'm like, there's no ants. There's no ants. There's no ants. I'm like peeking from under the sleeping bag. I'm like, there's no
That's a
ants.
great character.
There's no ants. It's like, what's happening? So I had a key to the closet and I sleep in the closet. And I had a key. I was teacher. I'm going to sound crazy. I was teacher. I'm like, the janitor was crazy. I was crazy. But I was teacher's aide for every class, the Maya class, everything.
Oh, yeah.
And so I had keys to every building. And by 9 p.m., the ceramics building had a shower. And at 9 p.m., the hot water turned off. So I used to have my little duffel bag, and I would just pretend I was invisible, walk through the ceramics class, take a shower, and then walk out in my pajamas with a towel on my head, walk back through the animation class and the sculpting class, and I would just sit down in my cube. And I was like, just pretend you're invisible.
Were the classes in session at the time?
Yes, they were. They were. But I needed to take a shower.
And why did you sleep at the university?
Because what had happened was I tried not to a couple of times, but the deadlines were so hardcore and I wasn't getting enough sleep. I almost got into like a crazy accident and I started to like see people who weren't there crossing the street. And I was like, this is not okay. If you sleep in the classroom, you'll get an extra hour here and an extra hour here. You need that many hours. So I was like, all right, fine. Fuck it. I'm going to sleep here.
And you did.
I did because I had a hard deadline for this like animation test and there was no way I wasn't going to make the deadline. And so I slept there. And this other guy did it too. And he had his little wagon and he would wheel in his computer. And then there was like a bunch of folks, but it was like, I'm not going to risk like getting in a car accident. So I did for a week and a half.
Week and a half.
To make my deadline. And I wouldn't suggest it. but it was like the one thing that I learned was I'm never going to miss a deadline. I'll do whatever it takes to make sure that my deadline is hit. And that actually served me really well working in post-production.
Yes, that's right.
Yes. And so, but I did that for a little bit. And then I ended up taking the sculpting class that I kept walking through. And the teacher looks at me, he's like, are you the girl who kept walking through here in her pajamas? Yes, sir, that was me. Keep sculpting.
It's just like, okay.
Yes, that was me. I was like, okay, welcome to my class. I was like, thank you very much.
Wow.
Yeah. So like I know this about myself. I'll do whatever it takes to get shit done. So that was the one thing I did learn about myself. And I would say I don't recommend sleeping in the classroom. It was horrible. However, it did teach me something about myself.
That you can get it done.
I'm going to get it done. No matter what it is, I'm going to get it done.
Now, jumping to Nickelodeon is where you started as an intern.
Yes.
Yes. And how did you secure that internship?
My ex-husband, he had found an internship there. He had looked it up online. He had gone to the school to try and get one, but they didn't really help too much. So he went and found that Nickelodeon did internships. So he had started there as an intern before me because he was the year before me. And then when it was time for the internship process again at Nick, he's like, Farnaz, it's time. Come apply. So he had just started working there. He was doing he was like giving tours and answering phones and reception and all of that, like when he had started there. And he actually ended up starting the entire internship program at Nickelodeon. And so he had told me it's time. So I went and I ended up applying for the internship. And he's like, I'm going to step away and Katie's going to interview you. So there's no bias, right? And it's so weird how luck, fate, whatever you want to believe in would have it, right? So I say the most spontaneous planner you're ever going to meet. I had never watched Shark Week in my life until the night before. I don't know why, but I sat there and obsessively watched Shark Week the night before. And Katie was obsessed with Shark Week. And she wanted to go scuba diving. She wanted to go do all this stuff. She wanted to be a marine biologist. And she was the one interviewing me. And I don't know how it came up. And all of a sudden we start talking about Shark Week. And this 30-minute interview went on for almost 2 hours. He's like, did you just get out? I was like, yeah, it was great. So we got along like fantastic. And then she passed me over to the next phase. But that it just kind of happened, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah. So it just kind of happened. And that's and it was just me and this guy George, who I was also in school with at the time, applying for the post-production internship. And it was the first ever year Post had interns. And I had happened to apply for it because I was taking an editing class at Fullerton. And I was like, well, this is cool. Let's try this. And that's how I ended up there.
So it started as a post intern.
I started as a post intern.
And you worked your way up to post supervisor.
Well, first I ended up as a production assistant. I went back. I had 1 semester left to take because as a transfer student, they make you retake all of the basics again. I was like, ugh. Why? Just so you could charge more money? So I had to go take those classes again. And then, and it sucked because all my friends were the year before and everyone left. I was like, oh, I want to leave too.
When you got that job at Nickelodeon, did you have any idea where you wanted to go? Or were you just like, get in and figure it out? Like any ideas of like maybe a show one day?
No, I had not planned on having my own show until I got stuck in post-production. So what I wanted to do, because what animation class taught me was I loved being creative, but I hated doing it with someone over my shoulder. I hated drawing on a deadline. I hated someone telling me what to draw, when to draw. And what I noticed about animation was I was very good at seeing and drawing what I see, painting, sculpting, all the different ways of figuring out how to build it. But I wasn't necessarily as good at like storyboard kind of drawing and making it up from my head in that way. And I felt like other people were stronger at that than me. I was stronger at certain other elements of it. Probably looking back now, I should have probably gone into Maya more and built models, like been a modeler, because that's something I was good at, like building form. But at the time I was like, well, I want to be creative, but I also know myself. I don't like being told what to do. I need to be creative in a space where I can make decisions. So then I tried to be like an exec, like a creative exec. And I tried to move over that way a couple times.
It's tough.
And they would not let me in.
Yeah.
They were like...
Any idea why? Or is it just the pigeonhole of being in post-production?
There's a lot of boxes all the time that people are always trying to put you in. All the time. And it's still to this day, no matter how many times I shatter the box, they just put me in another one. I'm like... but there's a lot of boxes. And at the time, a lot of the execs were Harvard, Princeton, Yale grads. So that was the mold that they were looking for.
Creative executives?
Yes.
Giving notes?
Yep.
Harvard and Yale? That's interesting.
Yep.
Just...
and they are still out there right now. They are still at the studios, those same people.
So you think maybe, junior college, Fullerton, not creative executive
animation major? What? Why would you give notes on animation? I was like, what?
Right.
what? So like that was a thing that I had wanted to do. And it wasn't happening. I couldn't get in, right?
Yeah. And you're stuck in post. And I know for a number of years you were on Dora the Explorer.
I was on Dora the Explorer for 10 years. 10 years. Dora, Diego, I was on for 10 years. But a majority of those years, I was capped at coordinator, post coordinator. I had no supervisor. They wouldn't move me to supervisor because in our general manager's head, our show was bi-coastal. And so half was done in New York, half was done in LA. And in his mind, that meant I wasn't doing half the work. But our post-production process was different than every other show's post-production process. So I actually had a whole other half that other people didn't have. And by that, I mean, because we research tested, we did research testing on Dora in storyboards, so storybook animatic, then in animatic, and in post-production. So in post-production where everybody's done, we would, if it tested low, we would rewrite the entire episode and all the sections that weren't working and rebuild it with target sequences in post-production. So I had to manage all of that happening.
Wow. That's intense. I mean, we storybook test now, but that's that like outline.
Yes.
We're writing.
Yes.
You know, not.
Imagine doing it in post-production.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yes.
Expensive.
So
and
it takes a whole, that phrase, fix it in post, to a whole other level.
I mean, you're doing complex problem solving in post-production.
And that's why I always say, like, it was actually a good thing because when you're doing it in pre-production, I remember I didn't want hiatus. So I said, I'll do whatever you need. I need the money. I don't want hiatus. They're like, well, we need help coloring the animatics for animatic testing. And I remember going to our line producer going, this is cheating. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, this is not going to test properly when you bring it into post because the balloon is like smaller than the size of my pencil. You paint it red and then you go, do you see the red balloon? Well, yes, I see the red balloon when everything else is black and white. But when everything is in color, you will not see the red balloon. And I'm like, this is cheating. And no one would listen. I was like, great, flag it. We're going to have to fix it in post. I started to learn a lot. And I didn't realize all the stuff that I was learning at that time. That's why I always say I got my education in preschool, right? Like, and so when we would have to fix it in post-production, it was like all the stuff you cheated in pre-production.
It catches up with you.
It catches up with you.
Only
and now,
with a tighter deadline.
Yes. But now I know the real answers to the test. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, you know, this whole time you're like absorbing knowledge and information. You just don't realize it. So putting it away in the file cabinet, putting it away in the file cabinet. And, you know, it was actually really helpful in creating my own show.
Absolutely. I mean, you problem solve all day long. And so at least you're not seeing things for the first time on your own show, but you are feeling stuck in post. You kind of try to find your way out.
I couldn't get out. They wouldn't let me. And, but my line producer and my post, like VP, they were all trying for me. They were my advocates, but our guy would not allow it. And he was saying stuff like, you can't promote her just because you think she's cute. She's going to be too busy planning her wedding to be a supervisor. Like things like that, you know?
Whoa.
And it was one of those things where I was like, well, I don't know if my direct report is saying that to me, and that's not necessarily what he said, and he's saying that because of whatever. I don't know if he's saying that. I don't know, right? And so at that time, I was like, you know what? I'm going to show him I'm worth more than coordinator. I'm going to make my own show, and he can't stop me. So this is where, so I'm grateful to him. Like, I don't resent him. I don't necessarily like him, but I don't resent him because if he hadn't have done that, Shimmer Shine might not have existed, right? Like,
absolutely.
Again, remember, you told me I can't be in the special studies class. I'm going to be in the special studies class. I also actually forgot a part. My dad's like, I was looking at the art school up in San Francisco. He's like, you're not going to go to San Francisco. So I bought a ticket, a plane flight, and I went to San Francisco. I was like, going? Stop telling me what I can do. Still to this day, this is a problem. I ended up, it kept going and going. And then one day, Nihao Kailan came along, right? And they had finally gotten him to approve me being a supervisor. And he's like, fine, She can be a supervisor. And I was supposed to be on Fairly Odd Parents and Dora the Explorer because Fairly Odd Parents had kind of its routine and its rhythm. And that was supposed to be like the mechanical one kind of happening in the background because it had its own system going.
Like a well-run show.
Yes, exactly. And Dora had a little bit more ups and downs and different random testing. And now we have to rewrite it. It was kind of the more complicated one. So I had my easy one and my complicated one. And I was supposed to get a coordinator to help me kind of balance the two. And I was on Fairly Odd Parents for 1 week. 1 week. And I was sitting in this, we had this, this was the first time ever, there were 2 preschool shows at Nickelodeon, Dora and Nihao, right? So they did a big crew lunch with the 2 crews so they could all get to know each other in the preschool space, right? And I remember Mary Harrington and Debbie Hinman, they were sitting at the table in front of me, and Mary and I are still very good friends, and Mary she is physically turned around staring at me the whole time. I'm like, why is this like, why is she staring at me? And I was like, hello, like smiling. And then I come out of the meeting and I asked my boss, I was like, why are they staring at me? And he's like, were you nice? I was like, of course I'm fucking nice. But why are they staring at me? And he's like, I wasn't going to tell you till after the weekend so you could enjoy your weekend. I was like, no, now you have to tell me now. He's like, and at the time, Nihao was in so much trouble. They didn't know if they were going to make their delivery dates. It was a big mess. Like, it was a huge mess. And he's like, so-and-so wants you on Nihao now. The boss wants you on Nihao now. I was like, what? Like, what? That's harder than Dora. He's like, yeah, I know. Okay. And I remember I told my line producer, I was like, hey, he's saying I got to do the other one now. And she's like, Farnaz, are you sure about this? I said, I don't have a choice. That man's testing me. Either way, he wins. I'm the only one who has something to lose here. Because he's going to say, if she's as good as you say she is, she'll be fine. And if I'm not, he can say, I told you so, and he can get rid of me. And that's what he said. He said, if she's as good as you say she is, she'll be fine. I need someone who can see the fire and see the flames and say, how pretty. Because the ship was sinking, it was on fire. So I finally get promoted to supervisor. I'm finally going. And by the way, this whole time was still a pay cut from working at Bloomingdale's, remember, right? Wow. Except I was like, okay, so I'm finally going to get to supervisor now. I think it was 8 years of being a coordinator with no supervisor. I had no supervisor. I was on my own. And
how can you be doubted like that after 8 years? A promotion, like, oh, you can't hire her because you think she's pretty or she's planning. It's like 8 years.
8 years.
I mean, you've seen all the problems by then.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
And so and I'm not the only person he did this to. I spoke to another exec who's over at Disney. I didn't even say the name, and she said, "Is it so and so?" I said, "Yep." She's like, "He did the same thing to me. That's why I'm here at Disney." And now she's VP over at Disney. I'm like, yep. Like, she knew immediately who I was talking about, and I never said the name. I was like, yep, that's the one. Wow. So, so basically he, when I got on Nihao, like, the post supervisor and the line producer were no longer on speaking terms. There was a stack of notes this high sitting on her desk of notes she just didn't do. I was like, well, when are you going to do those notes? She's like, don't worry, I'll take care of them. I'm like, wait, you guys are not talking. Like, the line producer would come in, she'd give her the cold shoulder. And I was like, what is that? What have I walked into? And I am a month away from my wedding. Okay? I'm a month away. I dropped 13 pounds in 1 month because it was so stressful. I went from my dress being tight to my dress being loose. I was like, okay. Wow. And, but I went from, working as a coordinator to finally being a supervisor, making a little bit more money, but now I'm OT exempt, right? Now you're on salary. Yeah. And I went from working 40 hours a week to 80 hours a week because there was, remember, no way I'm not going to hit a deadline.
Yep.
No way I'm not going to make delivery, right? So remember, I slept in that darn classroom on 2 chairs with ants.
Yeah, right, the janitor banging things.
Ants. I'm not going to miss, like, a deadline. And everybody's worried because everybody's jobs are at stake here. We are looking at, we're not going to make air. You know, it is a disaster. The overseas studio is not sending the footage back every time. You'd call a retake and be like, the bottle is red. It should be blue. And they're like, oh, really? Guess what? Now you got a cup too. And you're like, what? Why is there a cup? And now the bottle's green. Like, what?
Wow.
It was bad, like really bad. And I got in a lot of trouble for threatening the studio that they're going to lose their show because I went to everyone. I said, guys, we have a big problem. You're not going to make delivery if I can't get this. And they're like, well, go ahead and be firm. So I was firm. Apparently it was too firm. And the owner of the studio flew in and was like, who is this person? I was like, I wasn't wrong. You don't get to do that. You don't get to miss every delivery date and keep turning in the wrong thing.
No.
We're not going to make air, and you all should be just as mad as I am. And I got talked to. And they're like, you can't say stuff like that. I was like, you told me to be firm. I don't understand. What does that mean to you?
Well, good for you for doing that.
I was like, I don't know. What does it mean to you? Because that's what it means to me. Next time, clarify.
Threaten their job.
And it worked.
Yeah.
We ended up pulling the show from that studio, taking it to another studio so I could make air. And like I was watching the production manager, I was watching the line, I was watching them lie to the boss and say, oh yeah, we shipped it. And I would follow. I was like, we shipped it? Whew, thank goodness. When's it coming back to me? Oh no, we didn't ship it, Farnaz. You guys, that's me who's now in trouble. What are you doing? It's not real. It hasn't shipped. I end up taking all of the notes, doing all of the notes, color coordinating all the notes, going back to the network saying, here are your notes. This is how we couldn't address it like this for the following reasons. We had 5 notes that conflicted against it. So this is how we addressed it to make everybody happy. I mean, it would take us days to go through the notes from all the consultants, from the executives, from the showrunners. It was 3 days to get one set of retakes done. It was so much work. It was insane. And everything's color coded and we have to get on the phone and explain to everyone, what if we do it this way instead of this way? Is that okay? You know? And I remember the first time I told our executives, I was like, hey, so this is why we're doing this note this way. Now remember there was a stack sitting there that had just not been done. And she said, Farnaz, you're doing our notes? I was like, of course. You're the network. Your notes are important. You're the one paying the bills. Like, and she's like, no one's been doing our notes. I was like, your notes will get done. They should have always been getting done. And I will make sure that they're always done. And if they're not done, I will tell you why. So like, they loved me. This is not what they were getting, right? And not only were their notes being done, the show's actually starting to progress. We're actually going to maybe make it. And I remember hearing the number $8 million down the toilet if this doesn't get done, Farnaz. Oh, okay. Understood. I mean, there were times I was like, I'm just going to sleep here. But I was newly married and my husband would have killed me if I slept in the office. I was like, dang it. College. And I ended up getting not only the show delivered, but I built a pad in because there was always some sort of weird something. I built a pad in. So then I ended up delivering on early every time. I was like, yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem. So I finally got it into a rhythm and a system. And it just about almost broke me. Like it was exhausting, but we did it. And we had 2 seasons on that show. And as it started to taper down, and like, remember when I was a coordinator, I was like, I'm going to make my own show. But then when I got to supervisor and I was working 80 hours a week, I didn't have the bandwidth for anything anymore, right? And so when I was on maternity leave, so I got pregnant with my first on the second season of Ni Hao. Mm-hmm. And when I was on maternity leave was when there was like a flyer that came out that was like, come pitch us your show ideas. And I was like, oh, this is it. I still have to make a show. Because here was the thing. Yes, I was supervisor now, but I'm still stuck at supervisor. And it was costing me money to go to work. I still wasn't, even as a supervisor, making as much as I made working at Bloomingdale's. And by the time I had my second, I had said to my husband, I want to be in a house before we have our child. So I bought my second home. So now I got 2 mortgages and a kid, and my pay is not increasing, right? So
Wait, you wanted a second house before
I
you
did.
say?
Yeah.
What was the thinking behind that?
I wanted to have a family and I wanted to be in a house.
But didn't you buy
It
a
was a
house?
townhouse, so I wanted a bigger house.
Oh.
It was small, so
I see.
I wanted like a house.
House.
Yes.
Because for your second.
For me to have kids. Because I
Yes.
was going to have more than one. I wanted 3, and they were going to be 2 years apart. So I had it all.
You had
Told
the
you
plan.
I'm a planner, like spontaneous planner.
Got
but
it. So you wanted
planner
a more appropriate house
for
that you felt-
a growing family because we
growing
are now
family.
married and we're going to have kids.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do this with them. Let's do this now. And again, it was like, we can't afford it. Yes, we can. We'll figure it out. Like, so then we had 2 mortgages. So by like, what was it? 27, 26, something like that. I had 2 mortgages and I wasn't growing at work, and I was like, okay, I need to make more money. What am I going to do? And so the flyer comes out, and I was on maternity leave with my son, and I told my ex, I was like, let's go pitch. And he's like, we don't have an idea. I was like, it doesn't matter. You work on SpongeBob. I work on Dora. We're both top of our class. We can figure it out. We're smart. Let's go. Like, doesn't matter.
We don't need one of those. We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. So like, baby's like 2 months old in the rocker. We're sitting there on the weekends trying to come up with a show idea. We had less than a week to come up with a show idea, And I already had a name for our daughter because that would be our second. And so it was a show called Detective Sam Can. And it was a young detective named Sam, and she would solve these preschool problems, right? And so I handed my boy to the neighbor who was pregnant, because we were all pregnant at the same time. And apparently everybody had that brilliant idea of move into a house before you have a family. And I was like, watch him. I'm going to go pitch a show. I came into Nickelodeon on maternity leave, waiting at the bottom of the stairs. And down comes Butch Hartman, the creator of Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh, yeah.
Talk about intimidating. Like, Butch was like...
Legend.
Yeah, king of Nickelodeon. Like, he had so many shows going at Nick. I was like, it's over. And my ex was like, Farnaz, you don't know what he pitched. Maybe it wasn't very good. Just walk in there with confidence. Okay. So we walk up the stairs. Easy for you to say, So like, we walk up the stairs. We go up there, and again, like Shark Week, as luck would have it, the executives on Nihawk Island were now the development executives for Nick Jr. And they're like, Farnaz? So this man had set me up to fail on this project, but he inadvertently set me up to succeed, because a big part of development is knowing whether or not you can work together. They already know I can, and they already know I'll do whatever it takes. They already know how hardworking I am and how driven I am, right? And they know I've been working in preschool this whole time, right? So there were over 500 applicants, and we got selected to be top 5. They said, we don't want your idea, but we do like your sensibility and we want to work with you. So for the next 5 years, we were in their pool of people that they were reaching out to for all of the RFPs, requests for proposals.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, I mean, I can't even count how many shows we developed with the team. And I don't even know at this point. So like when people are like, I sold a show, I'm like, that doesn't mean anything if it's not on air. Like,
Yeah, and an RFP, for those who don't know, is when they have an idea and they are looking for writers to develop it.
Yes.
Yeah, and so you did a bunch of those,
Yes.
and you're building your relationship with this development
Yes.
team. In this capacity, they already knew you and trusted you, but now they're getting to see a different side of you.
A different side.
It's going well.
Yes, and the guy who'd been saying no had no idea I was doing this. It was totally separate of
Good.
him, right?
Forget that
and so when Nihao started to kind of wind down, I went to him and was like, hey, I'd love to continue to grow with the studio, and if there's like a sideways position I can make to kind of move my way out of post and continue to grow, blah blah blah. And he had said, thank you so much. That's a great way to handle it, because somebody else had just quit, and I really appreciate how you handled it, and I have something in mind for you. I was like, great. I said, I'll check back in later. So remember, I still have to deliver these episodes, right? The last of it. So as the last of it winds down, I go back to him a couple months later. I go, when we last spoke, you said you had something in mind, and I just wanted to check back in with you and see if that was still the case. And he said, we are getting more and more corporate here. Now, this is the first time it's like fully to my face, right? And he's like, we are getting more and more corporate here. You're a post supervisor. You've hit your glass ceiling. It's not a bad glass ceiling to be at, but you'll always be a post supervisor. What do? This is the boss. Like, okay.
I can't believe that.
Yeah. And I was like fuming on the inside, right? Because this is the ultimate, you can't do that,
Yeah.
Remember, this is a person who every time you told me no, I say, thank you very much. I show you yes, right? I can't be in the class? Oh, yes, I can. I can't, oh, yes, I can, right? Okay. Thank you for your time. I appreciate your honesty. Legal's door. Hey, remember you accidentally gave me rights back to one of those shows? I need it in writing. I need it in writing now. And I was pissed. So I went and sat down and figured out the email naming conventions for Disney.
You mean how their emails are
It's exactly
structured?
the same as Nick, but it was at Disney.
First name, last name.
Yeah.
Like,
And I was like, that's it. This is the head of this. This is the head of this. And I emailed all of them and said, I'd love to come pitch you. I didn't have an idea. Ooh, I don't know what I was thinking.
But you had that fire.
I was pissed. Yeah. And so we went in, and my ex was doing a project. I was the post soup for him at Nick. They gave him the rights back to it. He had a little short. We burnt it onto DVD. We took it in, He got a development deal from one of the meetings, like instant. We had a meeting with both the Disney XD side and the Disney Junior side. We did both. The Disney Junior side, it was kind of a different vibe. And I was like, you know what? I really want to continue working with the Nick Junior folks. So I came back and doubled down with the Nick Junior folks. And I told myself, you got 1 year, Farnaz. If you can't make it happen, find a way out. If you can't make it happen in 1 year, quit. Stay at home with your kids, raise your kids for a little bit. And then if you got to start over, you start over in the fashion industry. You work your way back up and try a different industry. Get the heck out of here, because I'm not starting back over in this. Like, so I started like busting ass. So at one point, I had no coordinator, no assistant. I was the only supervisor who didn't. And I was the only supervisor who had kids. I had to be home by a certain time to pick up my kids. I had 13 comedy shorts I was post-souping. I had Dora that I was post-souping. I had Nihao that I was, I think, wrapping up. I had 2 pilots that I was post-souping, plus 2 pilots of my own in development that I was overseeing.
That's huge.
It was a lot. It was a lot. And I remember, like, I had gotten to the point, Regina over at one of the studios that we were working at, she'd always be on the phone with me. I'd be trying to negotiate days with other studios to swap around, because like, we're not going to make delivery. I was like, yes, we are. Like, moving things around. And I was like, oh, Regina, I just want to be able to give my kids a bath. It's another baby wipe bath for you tonight, babe.
Baby wipe bath. Yep.
So she sent me as a gift a bag of baby wipes and aspirin for my headache. She was so sweet. I was like, thanks, Regina. But I remember being out in the cul-de-sac, and all the kids are playing, and I'm still on the phone, like working like crazy, because I would have to leave to pick them up at a certain time. I couldn't stay and work late, but I still had so much work to do because it was just me. I was the only one with no assistant and no coordinator, and I had 10 times more work than everybody else. And I just remember looking around going, aren't you guys embarrassed? Like, oh, this is insane. And by the way, my boss let me know that I got paid least out of everyone. I was like, what? And once I had my kids, something in my brain changed. And it was like, can I curse?
Yeah.
Okay. I've been trying so hard not to.
Oh, please.
But I just remember once I had my kids, I was like, no fucks given. I'm done now. I know what I'm sacrificing. I'm sacrificing being with my children for no pay. So no fucks given. I'm going to say whatever the fuck I got to say. Right. And so I remember he came in and he told me, he's like, listen, we're going to give you a little bit more of an increase because so-and-so is making this much. So we're going to have to kind of pull you up. I just looked at him and said, yeah, I always figured I was getting paid the least out of everyone because this one has been here, this one's your number 2 in your engaged tour. And this one is, and this one is this. So that left me at the bottom of the totem pole. And he just went pale because I had worked for him for 10 years and I'd never spoken up for myself. I was taught to be respectful, But when I realized what I was losing, I never went back again. So now I'm like a fierce fighter and everybody's mad at me for fighting. But I'm like, no, I'm tired of this. If I don't advocate for myself, no one else will. And so, but then everybody gets mad at you. And I'm like, no, because, well, then don't do fucked up shit. Be cool and I won't fight. Then they gave me a little bit more because I called him out on the fact that I was getting paid the least, right? Because he admitted it. He told me. He's like, I caught him off guard. He's like, well, yeah, this person makes this much. Oh, okay, so $500 a week more than me. Cool. That's cool. And so, I had every reason in the world to want to get out of that position, right? So go into the office and they're like, hey, remember that design that you had done for this other project a long time ago? I missed a beat here. I had done a lot of different projects with them. But there was one project, again, my daughter's name was going to be Sam no matter what. And so her name was Sam at one point. But then we ended up changing it to Mia. No, it was which one was it? It was A, B, C, D, E, F, Genie. And it was a show about literacy. And Zach Shimmer's name was Mia. And she was granting the wishes for Zach. And she had a little bag of letters, and he had to be able to spell the word that he was wishing for her to be able to grant it, right? Because I was like, well, literacy's not fun. I don't really like reading, and now I'm writing children's books, and I'm like, how do you make it fun? Well, with magic, right? You got to make this fun for kids. So that's where we had landed with that one, but they ended up picking up Wally Kazam, and they never told me that we're passing on your project. And I just had this feeling in the pit of my stomach. I remember my buddy Henry, he drew like a Post-it, and he had a glass on it, and he put it in the middle, and he said, half full, Esnaashari, half full. I said, I know, Henry, I can feel it too. I don't feel like we're done with this. And I remember when we turned in the design of Shimmer, I said to my ex, I said, I want it to look like this, 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 and this. I want every little girl to want her as a doll. And you mark my word, right now, they're going to want that girl. They'll want her. They just don't know it yet. So flash forward to a year later, they called us and they're like, we're doing this new partnership with the UK and we want you to develop with the UK in hopes to bring it back to the US. So we went through like all these different versions. And it was Mia and she had these unicorns. And it was this land of magic that she was in, and the UK loved it. The US didn't. They had different sensibilities. Hence now Mia and me, right? Right. So,
Yeah.
so the US pulled us back to the US. The UK ended up making the idea that we pitched with someone else. I was like, cool. And then they made an RFP for that. And I remember sitting in the office and she's like, remember the design of that character? I was like, yes. And she's like, the big boss of like Nickelodeon, big boss of Nickelodeon loved it. Saw it on someone's desk, loved it. She loved it so much that we gave it to other people. And I had never, remember, up until like I had my kids, I was always very like polite and respectful and didn't, she'd never heard me curse before. And I just went like this. So I'm competing against my own designs? And she goes, uh-huh. And I go, that's fucked up. And she goes, we own it, Farnaz. We can do whatever we want. And so that was where Shine was born. That was where Leah was born. That was where, because I came out of the situation going, what do I do? But before I did that, I was like, well, what do I do? And I'm sitting there looking at the office and everything in there I had touched in some capacity. I'm like, lemons out of lemonade, find your way out. I was like, you obviously like what I do. What if you start a Nick Jr. division over here in LA? I'll find and source talent for you. I'll bring everything into you. Well, that's where Nick Jr. LA came from. So
Wow. That
that's where
conversation.
that conversation on our way to the subway to go to the next place, right? So it was from that conversation. Um, and I came back and my ex-husband was developing with me up until that point. But remember, I went to Disney and he got that development deal and he was like, you know what? I'm done. I need to focus on my own thing. You do it on your own. And up until that point, I had been begging him to do it because he was a storyboard artist. He could be director. He had places to move to. I didn't, right? And they had always said, he's the funny, I'm the heart. So I was afraid they wouldn't want me without him. And I was terrified to tell them that he's out, right? And so they ended up going, it's fine, Farnaz. As long as you still want to do it, let's keep going. So I was like, okay, think fast. And so that's where I came up with, all right, Farnaz, let's reverse engineer this. They've given it to other people, but most people's ego will not allow them to use my designs. They're going to think they can do it better. So they gave me the answer. Now let's find the equation. They like that design. They like it so much that they gave it to other people. She's no longer granting wishes for a boy. She's granting wishes for a girl. They like that design. I'm going to make an army of that design. No one else will do that. She's going to have a twin sister. Let's keep going. So I had to my whole thing is the hardest things that you go through in life, they are there for a reason. They are meant to test you, to push you, to get you to where you're meant to go in that fork, right? Most people would have given up and like, what the hell? I don't want to compete. This is messed up. But I was like, no, this is your shot. Go, take it. And I remember my neighbor was like, and this was at that same time that I had the 13 comedy shorts, the everything, and I'd be outside just baby wiping the kids, you know? And he was like, Farnaz, you work so hard. Why do you work so hard? And I said, Phil, because I can feel it. I'm right there. I just have to keep pushing and see what's on the other side. I got no other choice. There is no other choice. And he looked at me like I was so crazy, you know? It was like, but again, this all goes back to college and it all goes back to doing whatever you got to do to get to your goal, your deadline. I had a 1-year deadline I gave myself. I'm getting there. So, I remember one morning, I felt it. I woke up and I felt it. I was standing right next to the laundry hamper. We're getting ready for work. And I said, this show's getting picked up. I didn't even have a pilot. I didn't have anything. I said, this show's getting picked up and it's going to be huge. And my ex was like, what are you talking about? Don't get your hopes up. You don't even have a pilot. You don't have anything. This is not my hopes. I can feel it with every bone in my body. This is a fact, like the sky is blue. I know this show is getting picked up and it's going to change my life. This is massive. I could feel it. There was no way this wasn't going to happen. So I just kept hitting it with that in mind. It's happening, right? And so less than a year, we didn't even ship the pilot we had to pick up. Less than a year. The pilot had not even gone to overseas. They flew me into New York. They had me meet with all lines of business, the golden books, mega blocks, standing room only, explain to everybody what the show is and what it's going to mean. And then from there, the crazy thing about that was I didn't even know that that's what the meeting was that I was in. I remember there was like a piece of fuzz on my face the whole time I was speaking. I was like, I can see it. Why didn't you tell me it was there? To my story editor. But I remember sitting there going, this is a big fucking deal. And my story editor was sitting next to me. She goes, I'm glad I'm not you right now. I was like, what is happening right now? But I had to just wing it, right? And so what they didn't realize about me was all my years of sales, you got to go in and you got to be on when you're on, right? So I was top sales girl. I was good at commission. So it's time to be on. It's time to be on, right?
It's the same skill set for pitching, right?
Yep, all of it. It all kind of adds up, you know? Everything you go through in your life, it's all going into that file cabinet and it all, whatever it is, it all adds up, right? And so apparently I did it so well that they decided that they wanted me to do something that no other show creator had ever done. And they wanted me to start presenting to Target and Walmart for the buyers presentation, something called Studio Swing. So all of the big buyers will come to the studios to hear about the next projects, and the heads of consumer products and licensing put on this like huge event to like show them what's coming and which brands they want to, align with and put on shelf and what gets, because there's different price points for what gets front facing versus inner aisle. There's all kinds of things attached to all of that. And I remember they're like, we need to talk. I was like, okay. And they're like, we've got this thing that we do and we would like for you to do it. No other creator's ever done it before. And this weird old brain of mine is like, cut to the chase. You're talking too soft for me. This is a waste of my time. Stop pampering it. Be very clear. And I was like, okay, stop. Are you saying that I need to go in and I need to wow them so that you can get end caps and they'll pay for signage and end caps without the company paying for it, in turn making the company more money, meaning I get more seasons? And they were so like annoyed that I was so clear. And they're like, yeah. I was like, okay, yeah, sure. Come in.
Yeah.
And they're like, what?
Just explain to me what you want me to do.
Yeah, just tell me what you want me to do.
Like, okay, got it.
And I go, so you need me to wow them? And they're like, well, yeah. And they're like, listen, Farnaz, these people they're not easy to wow. You're not going to go in there and just get them to like you. I said, you point me at who you want, and I promise you I will get them. This is how I was top sales girl. I know how to do this. Like, I was like, just point me at who you want. Go in there, do the thing. I got offered a job at Target, like within 15 minutes. I was like, sweet, thank you. But then from there, they had me doing all of those. And it really opened up my world as a creator in a whole other way, because I was able to learn the business side of it. I was able to learn the consumer product side of it, the licensing side of it. I'm leaving for a licensing show on Monday to keep my relationships and talk about a couple different things. I was able to see it from a completely different perspective and look at that time, shows were only getting 2 seasons. We got 4.5, technically 6 years of production.
It's huge.
Most people were not getting that, but that was because I tried to learn as fast as I could these different elements of it and structure it to a way where we were one of the only shows who was embracing licensing and merchandising and putting it naturally into the scripts.
Well, because that's where really the money is made for studios. Is that right?
Yes.
I mean, it's all, everything they ask you nowadays for pitching, or at least what they listen for, and you tell me, is play pattern.
Yes, but when in 2019, when I was back out pitching, it was poo-pooed on. They did not like that I did toys. There was a negativity.
Who didn't like it?
All of the studios.
Really?
They did not like it. It was only when commercials went away, because they made money off commercials. Commercials went away, and then all of a sudden, everybody's like, franchise, franchise, franchise. I'm like, do you know what that word means?
That's right. And commercials went away because everything moved to streaming. And so now it's like, well, we can't, their advertising.
Yes.
Is
so we need different lines
changed.
of business. Yes.
Huh. And so, okay, so that's fascinating. What do you think they saw in you where they wanted you to be the first show creator to, quote, wow the
initial thing they saw, I think, was that I looked like a genie. So they could authentically put me in front of people, right?
Huh.
It wasn't like the creators of Dora who were not Latin and doing, I looked the part, right? And I'm no fool. I walked in for that first one. I was like, I know what they want. I know what they want. This is sales. So I put on my brightest blue dress that was like shine colors. I had my glittery shoes. I came into that thing with rollers, and I walked around the studio with rollers in my hair the entire day because I was like, I don't give a fuck. I need big hair for this because genies have big hair. So these rollers are staying in till the very last minute, And everyone's like, Farnaz? I was like, again, the towel in the classroom.
Yeah, right.
I don't care. I got to do what I got to do.
And that's where your eye for fashion comes in. You're like,
I know what to do. This is a sales pitch. And I learned that back when I was working at Bloomingdale's. If I looked and dressed a certain way, I sold more because they want to know you look a certain way to sell more. I learned all of that at 18, 17. That was clear. I made more money when I did my hair and makeup.
And those fundamentals of sales are the same,
It's
right?
the same, yeah. And so I went in looking the part, I did what I needed to do. And then I did that every time, right? But the more I got to do that, the more I got to learn, the more I got to there's a direct correlation between these two. When we're talking with the folks from Walmart and they're telling me this character doesn't sell, that affects my scripts. I'm getting this live. Don't remove her from those scripts now. It's not going to help us because Walmart is 70% of our buyer. We have to change it.
And that really directly affects what your episode order is, how many seasons you get.
Everything.
I mean,
Yes.
every single person working on a show, you know, and going through that now is like you always hope for that next season, but there's such a mystery, at least to our side, of where that yes comes down from. But
I
knew.
changed that. So here's what I did. So because my brain is very problem solution oriented, and I was told by my exec, and it was one of those things I didn't know I was, and this is why I said in the beginning, I didn't know I was different till Shimmer and Shine. I didn't know my brain works different, right? I thought this is everyone, you know? And I remember my exec saying, I've never seen anybody like you, the way your brain works. I'm like, what are you talking about? Don't be weird. I am normal. What's wrong with you? And he was like, no, your brain, it breaks everything apart and then it puts it back together. And as he said that, I went into like a trance and I saw my entire childhood and I went, you're right. Yes, that is what I do. You don't do that? He's like, no, Farnaz. I was like, you guys don't see things like that? They're like, no. I was like, oh, okay. But that's how I came up with the show idea. Break apart the problem, put it back together, right? Like, problem is they have my designs. What's the solution? Make more. Like, so in that case, it worked really well for licensing because essentially I remember one day, the thing that happens when you're working on a consumer products show is here you are, da, 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 I'm writing my show, I'm making it, and you're like on episode 10, and they're like, can the genies ride a motorcycle instead of a magic carpet? No. Why? And that was 10 episodes ago. You're too late. So it was this constant thing where we have to reorder episodes and do this and do that because it wouldn't work. We're already going, but by the time they see it, we're past that slot. And that slot is specific to a price point on shelf. We're past that slot.
And when you say by the time they see it, who's they?
The consumer products team.
The consumer products team.
Because
at the
everybody's
studio.
working in their own groups.
It's very true how little the departments talk to each other until, you know, it's months later by the time you hear something.
Too late.
You're like, no, we shipped it, or you fix it in post. You're like, oh, what a nightmare.
Yeah, it's too late. So this happened for a while and I got kind of sick of it. And I was like, look, there's got to be a better way to do this. And it really came from this one person I heard was saying rumors and trying to get me out of meetings. So I was like, oh, I'm going to show you that's not happening. Like making up lies. And so I ended up going out with like the big boss. I said, hey, do you have time for lunch? I'd really like to pick your brain on consumer products and how it works. It was a 3-hour lunch. I was up till 2 a.m. typing 10 pages of notes, which I still have to this day on my desktop at home, of how the consumer products pipeline works, where the price points are, what it means on script, what they base it off of. I asked everything I wanted. And we had season 3 already slated. It was all of the colored note cards were up. Everything was already mapped out for the whole season. And I went into the room the next morning. I said, I know what to do now. They're like, what? I go, these over here, move them over there. These are garbage. They're not going to help us. Get rid of them. They don't work with consumer products. They're filler. That's not going to get us anything. They have to have X amount of episodes for this one to sell. So those all have to move over here, here, and here. And we like redid the whole thing. And thank goodness for my story editors and writers being so accepting and understanding, because they could see my freaking weird Queen's Gambit brain moving. You know, I was like, ah.
But they understood this was from a consumer products consideration.
And so put it all up, and they took a picture and they sent it to my exec, my EIC. And she calls me up, she's like, Farnaz, you can't do this. I was like, I mean, I did.
Can't do what?
Yeah. I was like, change all of the episodes and change all. Why not? This is the time to do it. I did it. I said, I am 150% certain that this is better. I stand behind it. And before you tell me I can't do it, take it to consumer products. See what they say. If they say no, I'll change it back. But I know they won't. So she then takes it to our SVP, who then calls me with the person who had been saying certain things that were not true. And they call me to tell me, you can't do this, Farnaz. I was driving to work. No fucks given, you know? Like, yeah, what's up? You can't do this, Farnaz. And the words were, we have been trying to crack the consumer products nut for 20 years, and you're not going to be the one to do it. I've never actually said any of this, so hopefully they don't listen. You're not going to be the one to do it. And I said, well, I can, and I did, and here's how. And I explained the whole thing very calmly, because at this point, what do I got to lose? I know it's better. I'm confident in this. And I break it all down, and it's just crickets. I was like, oh, well, I'm driving. I don't care. Be quiet.
And this was insight you gained from the lunch that you asked that big boss out to. This is based on your own initiative of trying to figure out
how do I fix
what were
this?
some of those changes and insights that you learned?
Well, like one of the things is like, okay, so for example, here's the tea. But this is an easy one though. Usually your bigger purchase item happens at Christmas, and that will usually be a larger play set. So if you have a new location that's really elaborate, you need that to happen at a certain time in the season so that that episode airs for Christmas. But in order for that to be the larger ticket price item, it has to make an appearance in X amount of episodes so that it's really an established thing in the series, right? So there's like rules like that to each thing, you know? So then you got to go, okay, so these stories now have to feature this in some way. Maybe we see a different area of it because the toy for this will now open up, have these mechanisms so we can feature these different mechanisms in these episodes, right? But you have to have a plan. So, and you have to understand that to do that because it affects your entire season, you know? Because now you went from needing it one time in one script to needing it 5 times in 5 different scripts. That's a whole other beast, you know? So we did that. And she was like, Farnaz, I'm 100% on board with this. This will work. This will work. I was like, I know it will. Thank you for acknowledging. Go for it. Do whatever you want. So what I started to do then was post-production would be in season 1. Pre-production would be in season 2. My brain would start mapping out season 3 for consumer products, right? And I was like, here's the problem that you're having. With Paw Patrol, you can give the dogs a new outfit, and now that revitalizes it on shelf every time. I can't keep changing the genie's outfit. They can't be in a fire captain suit. They can't be doing those things. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to unlock different parts of the world, and that way I can give them a new look for each part of these worlds, and now you have new things on shelf. And they're like, yeah. I was like, you just got to tell me the problem, guys. Stop giving me your solution. Tell me the problem. And then I can find a solution that works for us both, you know? And so I ended up changing that. And I ended up getting ahead. I ended up 2 years ahead of consumer products. I was like, damn it, you should have been a little slower. Because they were able to continue with all of the work that I had done over a year after. They were still making new stuff off of that stuff. Like I ended in 2019. They ended in 2021. I was like, oh, cool. Glad I figured that out.
And where did that initial... Why care about consumer products? Where did that come from?
Well, to me, I saw all these other creators fighting it, and that didn't make sense to me. Because why wouldn't I want kids to play in that world? That's how they tell their version of the story. That is them engaging in the world that we build. So why wouldn't I want that? I felt like everyone was looking at it the wrong way. And for me, it was just an extension of our storytelling.
Mm-hmm. I love hearing you break that down because I was on a show where we were having a franchise meeting, and the big new refresh in that season was vehicles. Mm-hmm. And then it's like the big vehicle. But to me, I was like, this is so cool because now we have to find a way to make this work for
puzzle.
Story.
Yeah.
It is. And it's like, there's a way we could do it.
Yeah.
But I think that the resistance that you're talking about hearing in other people is like, don't tell me what to do. Don't try to commercial it. But it's like, you're working for Disney. You're working for Nickelodeon. You've already entered in the agreement that you need to make them
business.
Money.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I just think it's cool problems to solve.
Yeah.
Like this new location. How do we feature it across 5 episodes? Mm-hmm. Well, that's fun.
It's creative problem solving.
Yeah.
And if we're not in here to be creative problem solvers, then why are we here?
Right. And if you get a note that's like, put the genies on a motorcycle, you could, your world well enough to go, that won't work, but
I can do this to get you this. Are you looking for this? They're like, yeah. Will this work? Yeah. Okay, cool.
So rather than, resist, you brought them to you.
Yeah. I very, very, very rarely said no. I'd always find a solution, but if I said no to something, they knew I really meant it. And I'm like that in general, right? Like if I say no, that's like for real. That's I know what I don't want. Like,
You
but
seem
the
to
rest
have
of the
always
time,
had that
yeah,
about you.
the rest of the time, and the problem was, like, I remember they were always telling me, no, Farnaz, you can't. No, Farnaz, you can't. I was like, you guys need to understand something about me, okay? Growing up, even my mother didn't say no to me. My mother would explain, and then I would get to the solution of whether I should do it or not do it. So the way you're treating me, my mother didn't even treat me like this as a child. This is not going to work with me. This is not how leaders are made, and I am a leader. You don't just say no. Like, it was like, I'm giving you the keys to how to talk to me. Take the keys. Take them, please. I'm very self-aware. Take them. Don't manipulate me with them, though. Yeah.
And looking back, I mean, the show's success speaks for itself.
Thank you very much.
Right?
I mean, we're viral on TikTok how many years later?
Well, yeah, and I looked at the YouTube channel, not even the presence on Nickelodeon, but the YouTube channel specially for Shimmer and Shine. It's like 813 million views. It's almost 1 billion views.
Is it?
Yes.
So we've only had it for like just a little over a year.
Right. And there's shorts, there's all kinds of stuff. So
Yes.
they're modernizing the way that now people are engaging with
Yes.
YouTube with Shimmer and Shine.
Yes.
I mean, that's what when I say the show's success, I'm like, that's unbelievable.
Yes. So
how do you feel about that?
You know, it's so crazy what happened that day? That day, I was just sitting at my computer working. This is like less than a year ago, right? I'm just sitting at my computer working. I just got this feeling all of a sudden in the pit of my stomach. And I was like, I wonder if Shimmer and Shine's on YouTube. Oh my gosh, we have a channel. And I was like, we have a channel. And then I looked and I was like, whoa, not only do we have a channel, I think it's doing well because I think they're using it to kind of bring in girl audience on some of these other ones.
Yes. I did notice that they were promoting another show on top of the homepage, but using Shimmer and Shine as a platform, which is awesome and a great compliment to.
And I was like, wait a minute, is that happening? So then I was like, let me go to Amazon. Do we still have consumer products? So then I started like researching a little. I was like, dang, okay. And this is like less than a year ago. And I didn't tell anybody a word. I didn't say anything to anyone. The next morning, my buddy texts me. He's like, oh my gosh, Farnaz, I went to dinner with this woman and she works on the Shimmer and Shine YouTube page. They have a YouTube page. I'm like, it is so weird that you're texting me this because I literally found it yesterday. And he's like, you have to meet her. I was like, okay. So then I meet her. We go to dinner. And then she introduces me to her boss who does the Shimmer and Shine. He's the VP of like Nickelodeon Paramount YouTube, and he's amazing. I love him. And so then I was over there for Toy Fair and I did a whole thing. They're all still very actively working on it. So they were all stoked and I went and met the team and it's just so weird. And so they've been giving me kind of like how it's doing and stuff like that. And it's just so weird how it happened all of a sudden. And we were developing the spinoff series prior to everything that's going on with Paramount, you know? So we stopped because of everything going on and they're figuring out what's going on. But the show it's still doing well. So the amount of subscribers it's exceeding what they were expecting. And the fact that it's viral on TikTok right now, they're like 13, 14-year-old girls. Those were the girls who watched it. Those were my daughter, right? So my daughter was 1 when we started the show. That's her age group doing it now, which is really cool. And so my son's 15, my daughter's 13. It's their generation who's doing this stuff now. And my kids always come home and like, Mom, so-and-so, I told them what you did and that you made this show. And they're like, wow, your mom was my childhood. I'm like, you guys are still kids. But they're just like, Mom, that's really cool that you inspired all these kids. I was like, you're finally getting it. It's pretty amazing, right? And like the characters are named after my kids and my mom and all of that because growing up there was no Farnaz keychain, you know, there was none. There still won't ever be, you know, but I wanted to leave something for them. And I was like, the back of my head, I was always like, one day they'll be in college and someone will be like, your name's Samira? I used to watch a show with the Princess Samira. And my daughter could go, yeah, that's me. That's me, my mom. And here we are, it's happening, right? So it's pretty cool.
It's unbelievable. It's amazing. And at what point in this process did you start writing children's books?
2019, I was repped by UTA, and Gregory McKnight was my agent. And he's like, Farnaz, Gregory, I need you to write children's books. I was like, I don't read them. You want me to write them? He's like, do it. I was like, okay. So then I was like, what am I going to write? Again, this is another problem to solve. I'm like, what am I going to write? And one day I was in the toothpaste aisle at Target with my son out here. And my son was really struggling to learn, I don't remember if it was math or reading, but he was having a hard time. And I remember telling him, I was like, Shaya, mama, because he struggled with school. I was like, Shaya, mama, it has to be hard. Like, if it's, and I just said, failure is just practice on your way to success. If it was easy, everybody would. So I'm like giving him this talk, and like, I remember this guy just staring at me, and I was like, don't look at me, you weirdo, like, and he just looks at me, and then he looks at my son, and he goes, hey kid, your mom is right. Your mom is right. And I was like, huh? And that's when it hit me. When they were younger and I would drop them off at kindergarten, I remember one of the moms going, wow, I wish I could talk to my kids the way that you do. And I was like, that's so another one of those things. Like, I've never seen somebody's brain work the way that yours does. And I was like, what? That was weird. What do you mean? You have a mouth, use it, talk to your kid. What? I didn't understand. So it all kind of just started to like, literally like in Queen's Gambit, the pieces started coming together above my head. I was like, oh, children's books are like greeting cards. Not everybody can articulate what they're feeling the same way. This is a thing that comes natural to me, but not for everyone else. So children's books are the greeting cards for kids, for parents to be able to teach their children certain lessons that maybe they don't have the words to teach. I know what my first book will be. So it was about failure is just practice on your way to success. And it was about my son. It's called Little Leo because he's a Leo. And so he's like learning to jump, and he's trying to figure out how to jump, and he keeps failing. And then he starts to like fake it, and he throws like a pout, and he does all of the things that kids do when they don't, and adults when they want to act like I didn't really care, And then we find out same way as like my show, because one time the head of like the studio that did season 1, our very first dinner, he said, Farnaz, don't you wish you would have gotten it 13 tries ago? And I said, no, I had to fail in order to succeed. Every time I failed, it just taught me one more thing that I didn't know in order to get closer to success. And it wasn't even, I hadn't even thought about that. That's just what I said. And I remember my executive looking at me going, yeah. and then all of those pieces came together. And that's where the first children's book came from.
And the second one, Baba Jean's Treasure,
yes,
which is so sweet.
Thank you.
And I have it over there. and you saw it when you came in. And so could you talk to me about the inspiration for that book? Because for those who don't know, could you say what it's about?
So Baba Jean's Treasure is about, it's a little girl who is, the best way I can explain it is growing up like Iranian American, right? I was raised with like Iranian culture, but in an American culture. And I never really felt like I fit in anywhere. And the best way, there's a saying, like when we would go to Iran to visit my family or to London or wherever to visit my family, I missed my friends here when we would be there, and vice versa, right? And so the best way I could always explain it is a saying in Farsi called do dil, which means of two hearts. You always had to leave one heart behind, no matter what. And so the culture was the same too. And a couple years prior, I was in England with my family and my cousins were like totally, they're young, they're like 20 years younger than me, and they're like fully like going with the Persian music. I was like, why are you guys so Persian? You were raised in London. What is this? And I was like, this is like your parents' music. You like this music? And they're like, well, there's nothing that exists for us. And during COVID, I was like trying to come up with things to do because all my development deals like kind of blew up. And I was like, you know what? My uncle had said to me in the car that day, There's nothing that exists for the kids like you, where it's a combo of the two. And he said to me, then you go make it, Farnaz. And I was like, oh shit, that's what I write about. Write about what you know, right? So this is loosely based off of my childhood. And I might cry here a sec. It's loosely based off of my childhood, and it's the duality of heart and the disconnect that starts to happen when you are in a different culture and of a different generation. You lose some of that information, right? And so it's about Miriam finding herself in unexpected ways and learning about her family and her family's culture in unexpected ways. So a lot of it is kind of, there's a lot of stuff actually straight up my grandpa in there. And middle of the book, my father passed away. So the forward in there is to my grandfather and my father. The handwriting in there is my father's. That's why it's very sweet. It's a very, very sentimental book for me. So, but every single one of them has to have something, you know?
Yeah.
And he actually did get to see the print before he passed. I have photos of him seeing it. And I remember my father, his birthday was 10/23. So whenever I see the numbers 10/23, I think of my dad. It was 10/23 at night, and I made a wish because I believe in wishes, and Shimmer Shine is all about wishes. And I made a wish. I said, Dad, I wish you were here with me right now. And I went home, and the first copy of the book was sitting on my kitchen counter. I didn't know it had come that day. And I opened it up, and I had never seen it before. In the spine, I didn't realize the artist on it, his last name was my dad's first name. So the spine literally says Bubba June's treasure means grandpa is Bubba June, and it means grandpa's treasure, and it says Bubba June's treasure, and it says Ali Esnaashari, which is my dad's name. And I was like, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
There's more that happened that night when I asked for him to be there. But so the book is a very sentimental book for me.
Yeah, that's incredible. That's beautiful. And first time I read it, and I loved, the girls mistaking her grandfather for a pirate, and
Yeah.
which is these little clues that drops, and then all of a sudden it takes I felt like this weight shift, and I said, oh gosh, this is deep for just, you don't need many pages to tell a deep story.
Yeah.
And there was that moment where it's like where grandfather's talking to his friend, and he's like, oh, I just like to speak Farsi sometimes because it reminds me of home, and all those little pirate clues were related to his home and his childhood. And I thought, I just was like, perfect story. So sweet and like complete, and it's funny, and then it goes deep, and then it's like, that is just a great, powerful story.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing that behind why it's that and more to you.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that we talk about the pitch docs, which is your new venture that you started.
Yes.
For those who don't know, could you talk a little bit about what that is and why, and the problem that you're trying to solve with that?
This was kind of at the beginning of things kind of shifting in the industry, and I saw so many of my colleagues. So when COVID had hit, I had a bunch of shows in development. I was doing Princess Jasmine with Disney. I was doing a blind deal with Nick. I had my own project with Spin. I had just done a take on Barbie from Mattel. I had so many things going. And then when COVID hit, one by one, they disappeared. They vanished. And I wasn't working for 2.5 years. And it was terrifying. And I remember feeling like, it's me. They must not want me. I must suck, right? And when our industry started to shift, and it took me a long time to kind of break myself back out of that and realize that wasn't the case. It was just what was going on in the industry. And when the industry started to shift, and I saw so many of my colleagues and friends feeling the way that I had felt before, I kept telling them, it's not you. It's everything's changing. I promise it's not personal. And I was like, well, what can I do to help? How can I help maybe get people a little bit of exposure and get them maybe a little bit of work in between. What can I do to help? And then I also remembered, when I was first starting and I was doing this, I would have loved to be able to go up to an executive or a executive producer or like a showrunner or a story editor or whatever and ask questions. But you can't, right? You can't just go up to people. It's intimidating. And I thought, well, why not give folks who don't have access, because the most valuable thing we have in this world is the folks around us, right? And I realized you take for granted where you've gotten to and all the amazing people that you've met who you just consider your friends. But to other people, to me 10 years ago, I would have died to talk to one of these people, right? But now they're just my friends, So you don't realize it. And I was like, well, we could give them access to these folks, and these folks can maybe, have a little bit of work come in. And if they like each other and these guys pitch an idea that they love and they want to collaborate, they now have access to new talent and go.
And that could be the start of a new relationship.
It could be the start of a new relationship. Go have fun, make stuff, like assign folks from the site and be like, hey, I've got an artist. Hey, I've got a so-and-so, and kind of like help build it that way.
At its core, you're connecting people that maybe wouldn't ordinarily cross paths.
Exactly. And I even had like a couple of things where we had little mixers at Kid Screen for those who were there so they could meet each other. But there's people from all over the world on there. I've got an artist from Sweden who did my first children's book, who's amazingly talented, and I've now been able to get her a few other things, by going, hey, look at her here on the pitch docs, I've got an incredible composer out of the East Coast who I've never met, who just saw it, and at some point when I can do something, I'm going to pull him in, like even for me. And I even wanted them to meet each other because at some point things are going to pick back up, know each other. Like, you all are amazing, amazing people. You all are incredibly talented. Know each other now while there's time to get to know each other,
Yeah. Gosh, I love that. And that's another, there you are, like problem solving again.
Trying.
Yes. And we'll definitely make sure that there's a link for people to check that out. I just think that's a wonderful service. This is something I ask every guest. It's called The Rule I Break.
Okay, cool. I think I broke like 20 already, answering everything honestly.
This is made for you, this question. Every industry has rules, and some are there for a reason, and some are just begging to be broken.
Yeah.
So what's a rule in your field that you don't follow?
I mean, I don't follow rules in general, right? So like in my field, well, I think the main rule that I don't follow is that don't tell me what to do. Tell me the problem when we find a solution together. Don't tell me how to feel. Don't tell me what I'm capable of, right? And don't put me in a damn box. Like, okay, yes, I've done preschool. Yes, I know it very, very well, but it's storytelling and it's character. And just because it's animation doesn't mean I can't do live action. So right now I'm working on a live action movie idea for myself because why not? Don't tell me where I belong. Don't tell me my lane. Like, don't tell me what I'm capable of. Just because you're not capable of thinking outside of the box doesn't mean I'm not. So I guess that would be the biggest one.
Before we go, I ask everyone 5 questions. It's like a rapid fire round.
Okay.
You can say as much or as little as you want. What was the last book you read?
It was an audiobook. Does that count?
Sure.
Many Lives, Many Masters.
What's that?
It was crazy. Like, it was.
Is it nonfiction?
It's nonfiction.
Uh-huh.
It was incredible. It's nonfiction, and it's this this doctor who was a therapist and a psychiatrist. And it was from he was back in the day when they were doing electric shock therapy. And he had this patient who came in and they tried to do all this stuff to get her past her anxiety. She was having severe anxiety. And so one day, after a year of her anxiety not getting better, she had this fear of drowning. She had this fear of choking. She had all these crazy fears that they didn't understand why. And so after a year of trying to do talk therapy and it not working, he decided he was going to try hypnotherapy. So then she goes into all of these past life regressions. And when she comes out of them, she remembers nothing. And as he's doing it, it's she starts to uncover some of the things in her psyche and in her past life. And then her anxiety is released. And it was the craziest thing I had ever heard. it felt like I was watching a movie. I'm like, what is happening? It was incredible. And some of the things that they talked about, I've seen in my dreams. I know what they're talking about. I was like, oh, I know the place. So it was, I finished the book in a day and I was in tears. I was like, this is insane. And it was, I don't even know how I found it. The book found me. I was on Instagram and the book found me. I was like, oh, I guess I don't like reading books, but I'll read this.
That's
Audio
awesome.
read it.
That counts.
Yeah.
That's great. What's a movie you love rewatching?
Beetlejuice a million times. Did a whole Beetlejuice themed yard, outfits, everything this past year. I love Beetlejuice. I mean, I have so many movies. I love rewatching movies. Ghostbusters, Beetlejuice, The Sixth Sense, tons of them.
That's an interesting genre right there. Sixth Sense, Beetlejuice, and Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
It's like all kind of in the
The
same,
same
like,
kind of thing.
interesting.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
That's why you don't pigeonhole people.
No.
Is it-
It's all over the place.
If it wasn't this, what's another career field you could see
Fashion.
yourself in, right?
Fashion. 100% fashion.
Worst piece of advice that you've ever received?
You can't do that.
Yeah, you've gone as far as you're going to go.
Yeah. You can't do that. You can't do that. Why can't I do that? You can't do that. Well, you just can't. Okay. Cool.
Talking about arbitrary rules. And,
Yeah. Yeah.
best piece of advice you've ever received?
I don't know if I was ever given any advice from others. I guess for me, people always say, what's something that you could change if you could go back and tell yourself something? Nothing. Nothing. I would change nothing. Because everything in our life gets us to where we are. And I learned that when I was 18 in a personal psychology class. I didn't expect this class to change my way of thinking. I was just taking it to mark something off on my course credit. And in that class, I remembered thinking, I am a culmination of everything that's happened in my life, both good and bad. And as long as I can learn from those things, I can adjust. And if I am happy with who I am, then even the bad is good. So I guess that's the advice I give myself that I would give to other people. As long as you can learn from your mistakes and you can learn from those situations, then nothing is really that bad because you can adjust and you can grow. Yeah.
Where can people find you or learn about your work?
I'm all over the internet. No, not in the bad way. I mean, I'm on Instagram at Farnaz Charmats. I'm on LinkedIn at Farnaz, I think, Esnaashari Charmats. We're at www.thepitchdocs.com. Yeah, you get all of those places. You can find me, connect, please do. And yeah, so that's where I am.
This was so wonderful meeting you, Farnaz, and like just hearing the way that you think and the way that you've approached your life and career. It was, I loved it. I knew this was going to be interesting just to kind of get how you approach problems, and this was just so fascinating.
Yeah, because you're like on LinkedIn going, who is this weirdo doing all this random shit? I gotta know. No. How did she go from here to here?
This is just a total pleasure, and I thank you for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye.